that brings us to News or Snooze, everyone's favorite segment. Bennett will give 3 quotes and or storylines, and we'll see if they're newsworthy or snoozeworthy. News or Snooze, presented by Cinnamon Bear, right across the street from Atlantic Union Bank Center over on that side of campus. A fantastic bakery and deli. Check it out the next time you're in Harrisonburg. Cinnamon Bear, next to the AUBC.
Heck yes. I have 2 quotes today, and then also a little stat. We're going to start stat because I've referenced it earlier, but I want to hear if it's news or snooze to you, given how quickly FPI can change. So the top team, as we mentioned, in FPI from the Sun Belt with a chance to make the playoff, Coastal Carolina right now at 4.1%. Is it news or snooze that FPI doesn't give any Sun Belt team more than a 5% chance of making the playoff entering week 4, I guess?
Snoozeworthy. Ding, snoozeworthy. It is because it can change so much. If Coastal goes out and beats UVA by 21 points this weekend, that's going to jump up 15 percentage points or something crazy. Now, if this was week 10 and the best Sun Belt team was 4.1% newsworthy. But this is what, week 4 we're going into? We haven't even got to conference play. There's so much change. And this is no slight to Northern Illinois, but they could fall on their faces in MAC play. Remember when Marshall went up to Notre Dame and beat them and then didn't even compete for the Sun Belt East?
Yeah.
Things can happen so quickly where right now those wins look great, but in just a few weeks.
I think I agree. We got to give it more time. The other thing too is like App State, Texas State aren't currently in the mix according to FPI, right? They're not right there. But like if they win out in Sun Belt play, you're 1 loss and you're Texas State and your 1 loss is to Arizona State by 3. You're going to be in the mix. You might need some help, but like you're going to be more than a 2% chance of getting in. So I think you're right on there. All right. Here's a quote from Bob Chesney. We're not going down there to try to play a close game. We're going down there to win a game. News or snooze?
Snooze.
Here's my question. He didn't have to say that.
I don't care if you say that. Like, it's like a coach saying, the bye week came at a perfect time. It's like a football player saying right when they report to camp, I've never been in the best shape. This is the best shape of my life. I'm in the best shape. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. Give us something else. Like, I don't
hear you. I just feel like he's saying stuff he doesn't need to. Like, if they do lay an egg, the way they like him saying it was their Super Bowl for Gardner Webb. If you say like we're not going down there to play him close and you get smoked, like some of these quotes are going to look real bad.
He is really funny because he's like started to walk back some of the stuff where like it's a lot in you guys. There's a lot of inexperience. Like asked about like the slow starts to football games.
We're about to get that.
Okay, then I won't spoil it. Snoozeworthy on this one.
All right, last quote. Last news or snooze. This is from Bob Chesney, the Monday press conference. Both the quotes are, we have a lot of guys on this team who have not played meaningful snaps at the FBS level. A lot of guys on this team haven't been starters for multiple years. We don't have that luxury. That was Bob Chesney on the slow starts as the Dukes are kind of feeling it out. He also has said that he loves what the team did during the bye week. News or snooze, his comments about, I guess, the slow starts, kind of blaming that on some inexperience.
So like here's my take on it, which I know is what you're asking and what this whole podcast is. So I don't know why I said that. It would be snoozeworthy if all throughout the preseason and camp, he was like, kind of took a page out of the Biff Poggi playbook. Remember when Biff was like, we may suck. Essentially, he was saying that going into the JMU game. Well, I'm not saying Chesney had to go that far, but you do have a ton of inexperienced players at this level. Not just inexperienced, but like you have to come in and you're building an entirely new coaching staff. So like it's new for you. You've never coached at the FBS level. Then not only that, you're putting together an entirely new staff. Then not only that, you have to bring in 60 plus new transfers. Then not only that, you have to teach them the JMU culture. Then you have to teach, like, there's so many things to it where if you in the camp time of year, the preseason was just like, there's a lot of things that have to come together. I really like their work ethic. I really have liked what they've been doing in practice so far, but it's a lot of new guys. that type of thing, that type of messaging, and then he went and said this, I'd say it's snoozeworthy. But that's not what he did at camp. That's not what he was saying to us. That's not what this team is a brotherhood. This team goes to the pool together. This team likes each other. They play the name game, Bennett. I don't know if you knew this. They play the name game. All right. You were hyping up how together this team was. You were hyping up how they had just come together and they were playing out of their mind and they were great. And then you go out and play Charlotte. It was a little slow of a start. That's fine. You have a good second half. Then you go and lay an egg against Gardner-Webb. And after the game, you're like, well, it's going to be a slow process. These are a bunch of new guys coming in. That's not what you told me a month ago, man. I'm just holding you to your own words. So that makes this newsworthy.
Can I push back on some of his quotes too? Like the whole part where it's like he's saying how inexperienced they are. Everyone, so like 19 of the 22 guys on the offensive and defensive like starting unit are either juniors or seniors or grad students. I know what he's saying. Like, not a lot of guys have experience at the FBS level. It's like, right, except like, Josh Toner, Tanner Morris, Cole Potts, Io, Cam Ross, Taji, Breon Penny, Dollison. Like, other than, Chauncey Logan and Trent Hendrick and Emmanuel Bush and those guys and Lloyd Summerall, like, none of them have played. Like, I don't understand what so I know he's saying like some of them haven't been the guy or whatever. Or maybe
Kyrie Mans, who was like the star at Maine at the FCS level, and goes to Colorado with Coach Prime.
I don't love that excuse and I get what he's saying. I don't think he means it as an excuse. And there's going to be some time to gel. I don't think like, we were only able to beat Gardner-Webb by 7 at home because like some of these guys aren't used to like being the man. Jacob Dobbs and Eric O'Neill have combined for 3 like FCS Conference Defensive Player of the Year awards. How is that not the man? And they were playing an FCS team. Like, why do you need FBS experience to play well against an FCS team? That doesn't make any sense at all to me. So I thought some of that felt a little cop-outy, especially after not saying any of this during the offseason. I think they can play a lot better. I get what he's saying, I guess, about the slow start, but I find it hard to believe that, like, Jacob Dobbs is feeling out the game because he doesn't have enough experience when he's, like, one of the most experienced players in college football and one of the best FCS players of the last, like, 3 years. I don't know, man. I didn't love that. I didn't love that quote.
I could have avoided all of this if you just tempered some expectations a month ago. Like, you didn't have, like, no one was making you say that how great the team was looking in practice. And then it's really irksome to be like, they're great. They play the name game. They went to this pool party. They're fantastic. They're coming together. They know each other. They're gelling. I've never seen a team, blah, 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 blah. And then you hit your first like bump in the road of the season and you're immediately like, I don't know what you guys expected. This is a new team. A lot of guys, a lot of new guys. They haven't played these types of roles before. Did you not prepare them for these roles? Were you playing the name game instead of like teaching them? I don't know how, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm overreacting to it.
I hear you. I do think they're going to come out and play well against UNC. I also am just confused because I thought during the offseason, like, and maybe we're being a little too harsh, but I thought during the offseason, like, the big thing about why they were going to click, and all the media storylines were like that they have clicked and they're a brotherhood, but the big thing was experience. Like, they not at JMU, but the whole thing was like they added this crazy level of experience in the portal, which they did. Like, Chris Fitzgerald has played a ton of football at Youngstown State. Jacob Dobbs played a ton of football at Holy Cross. Terrence Spence, a ton of football at Holy Cross. And then we're talking about like inexperience. Some of that is like self-inflicted or brought on by who you pick to start at a position. You know what I mean? Like they have Justin Eaglin listed as the starting corner over Jordan Taylor, who started multiple years at D2. That's because you like Eaglin's talent. You have Alonzo Barnett over Dylan Morris, who had 15 career starts at the Power 5 level with a Pac-12 teams, a Pac-12 honorable mention. Like Carter Sweezy starting at left guard over Josh Toner, who's played a ton. Because you like Sweezy. Like, that was what's so confusing to me, is it's like, oh, we don't think we have, that much experience. It's like there's actually a ton of games played on this roster. And I get the cohesion thing. I was just a little confused on the way it was worded, where it sounded like, oh, they don't have FBS level experience. It's like, well, is like 40 games played at the FCS not that should translate in my opinion. Like that's a lot of games played, man.
I mean, not to like point to the old guy and Kurt Signetti, but like the whole team that made the jump from the FCS to the FBS and, had a historically great
Right.
season, had a ton of like you're talking to a fan base that 3 years ago was an FCS team moving to the FBS with all FCS players and dominated Middle Tennessee in the first game of the season, and then would go on to dominate nearly everyone when their quarterback was healthy.
Yeah.
It's also like it's dismissive of the FCS play. Like there's just so many layers to it where it just feels dismissive of like, yeah, he played 4 seasons at Youngstown State, but Chris Fitzgerald's just not used to this.
And he's been playing great. That's what's so funny is like some of it's where like they don't have experience. Like, well, I think Dobbs has started to come on.
Some of the best players on this team right now are the FCS transfers. Because you know why? Because they've played a ton of snaps. Fitzgerald's a dog. Jacob Dobbs is a dog. I mean, on the offensive side of the ball,
Pettaway's
not a lot of dogs right now. Not a lot of dogs right now.
He's been one of the best guys, and he has limited experience. Like that's not an experience problem. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed like an execute. Like I don't know. It didn't feel like that was really the problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, this turned into a really, really heated vent session here.
Well, I'm interested to see how it plays out. I also didn't love really any part of this quote, but where it says like where he said we don't have that luxury of having starters for multiple years. Like given the portal era, man, you might never have that. Like if you want to win at JMU, you're going to have to deal with some level of roster turnover because like one of Ole Miss's best receivers played at JMU. Indiana's defense is like largely made up of JMU guys. Like the best players on their defense have been like Kamara, Carpenter, Aiden Fisher, Jalen Walker, D'Angelo Pons. That's like half the defense. And then offensively, Surratt's been really nice. Lawton's doing a nice job in the backfield too. Like you're going to lose some guys to the portal realistically if you have elite level talent at the G5 level. So I don't know if there's going to be a ton of years where you have a JMU guy who stays with you for 4 years and is a top end talent. Like you're going to have to use the portal. You're going to have to make the most out of those inexperienced players before somebody tries to snatch them up. So I get what Chesney is saying about the slow starts. I also think that like it's probably reality for a little while for JMU, and you got to find a way to make it work rather than saying like, oh, it's going to take some, like you got to find a way to make it happen. That's just how it works with the G5.
Yeah. And a lot of my anger is like, not necessarily anger, it's more annoyance, but like a lot of it just stems from you could have tempered these expectations a month ago with what you said. And now you're like, what did you expect? I expected what you told me. Like that's where my expectations are coming from. It's from what you said a month ago. It's from what has been reported around this team. So all that to say, I think like you, they have a chance to go out against UNC and play extremely well. The bye week did come at a good point. You got to lick your wounds a little bit after that Gardner-Webb game. You figure it out. You move forward. Maybe that's the kick in the behind that they needed, and they'll move forward and start looking like what we were told they were looking like in the fall camp.
How do you see this one going, UNC? Before we get start moving along to some other sports, what's your prediction here?
I think UNC wins 35-24.
Okay. I'm gonna say the Dukes win this one 28-24, man. I think they're gonna shock some people, come out and play well. If they are not in the game in the fourth quarter, I'm gonna be very disappointed.